Good evening. Well, Commissioner Kelly is joining us virtually, and so I will be chairing the meeting in person for us today. Welcome to our May 28th, sorry, Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available for those of you who are here in person, and the full packet is available on our website. Reviewing our full agenda, first we will consider our consent agenda. Actually, first today we will have a proclamation, which is not typical every week, but we'll do that at the top of the agenda. Then our consent agenda, there are 7 items on that, after which we will have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but that are otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. That can be sent to commissioners directly at any time. In order to be published in our agenda packet, we do have a deadline of prior to early Tuesday for publishing on our agenda, but anybody can provide writing at any time to all commissioners. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the county commission. Individual speakers may not donate any unused time to other speakers. We reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes and address your comments to the commission. I believe a sign-in sheet has been provided too. So after you're finished with your comment, when the next person starts, you're welcome to just write your name and residence there. That will be helpful for us with meeting minutes later. We will hear from people in person first, then look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please use the raise your hand function if you are online and wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we do value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comments on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get your specific questions answered after the fact. After general public comment concludes, we will move on to our regular business agenda for tonight. There are 2 items on our regular agenda. For each action item that we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the commission, and then we will open that item up for public comment that is relevant to that item specifically. Once public comment is closed, we will bring the item back to the commission for further discussion and a vote if it's an action item. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. Okay, with that, we're going to start with a proclamation. Commissioner Anderson has that to read, so I'll turn it over to her, and then we invite folks to come up and share more information with us.
This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Douglas County, Kansas, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to end this public health crisis. Whereas every day more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 18,000 gun homicides every year. Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Kansas has the 22nd highest rate of gun deaths in the United States, with 473 gun deaths every year, a rate of 16.2 deaths per 100,000 people, and costs the state $5.7 billion each year, of which $95.1 million is paid by taxpayers. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever, as we witness an increase in firearms suicides, homicides, and non-fatal shootings across the country and in our community. And whereas in January 2013, 15-year-old Hadiah Pendleton was tragically shot and killed, and her classmates chose the color orange to honor her and raise awareness of gun violence across the United States. And whereas we will wear orange on June 6, 2025, to raise awareness of gun violence and pay tribute to Hadiah Pendleton and other victims and survivors of gun violence, as well as the loved ones of those affected. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas, hereby proclaim June 6, 2025, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Douglas County, and encourages all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effect of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Adopted this 28th day of May 2025, Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. We have some guests that would like to share some comments, and then also might ask you all, since we're missing one commissioner in person, we can either get this to you at a later date, the signed proclamation, if you want all signatures, or send it home with you today for with just the four of us. So that's your choice before you leave.
Good evening. My name is Erin Smith-Bird, and I'm a volunteer with the Kansas chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, a grassroots volunteer-led organization that seeks to reduce gun violence in the United States through a combination of advocacy, education, and community engagement. I'm here alongside other volunteers from Lawrence and Douglas County to express solidarity with victims and survivors of gun suicides, homicides, and unintentional shootings. Every day in the U.S., more than 120 people are killed by a gun. Well over half of these are suicides, and in Kansas, the figure is almost 70%. According to the Annals of Internal Medicine, the presence of a gun in the home triples the risk of death by suicide. Most people who attempt suicide without a gun survive, and most who survive once do not die by suicide later. Meanwhile, homicides cause more than 40% of gun deaths in America and almost 30% in Kansas. Unarmed people often get caught in the crossfire, like Hadiah Pendleton, the 15-year-old whose 2013 death in Chicago inspired her friends and family to start the Wear Orange movement. We have all seen that even here in Lawrence, altercations have escalated into homicides because of the presence of a gun. Domestic violence is also a driving force of gun homicide. According to the American Journal of Public Health, a gun in the home increases the risk of murder by an intimate partner by 500%. In Kansas, as in the rest of the United States, guns are now the leading cause of death for children and teens. Each year, more than 2,600 American kids are killed by someone else. For children under 13, these deaths are usually connected to domestic violence or the unsafe storage of firearms by adults in the home. Of course, gun violence can alter the course of a person's life without ending it. Every day in the U.S., some 200 people suffer debilitating or even irreparable injuries at a cost not just of medical treatment, but of earning potential that can't be recovered. Also affected are the family, friends, and loved ones of those killed and injured, who themselves become mourners and sometimes caregivers, and witness to shootings who might relive their trauma for years to come. We, as Moms Demand Action, aim to make our communities safer by supporting policies like background checks on all gun sales, red flag laws to keep guns away from people who are a threat to themselves or others. We also support programs like Be Smart, which educate gun-owning adults to keep their weapons unloaded and locked up with ammunition stored separately. But our work begins by supporting victims and survivors. In observing National Gun Violence Awareness Day by wearing orange on Friday, June 6th, we honor them and we dedicate our efforts to them. Thank you very much for this proclamation.
Thank you. Would you like to take it with you today?
Yeah.
Oh, you got a crowd, so you got applause. We don't always have a crowd here.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for being here and for your work on that issue in our community. We will move on to our consent agenda tonight. Commissioners, anybody wish to pull anything for further discussion or questions?
I don't.
Okay, seeing none, I'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda for further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing no indication in person, any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, I'll bring that back to the commission for a motion then.
I move to approve consent agenda items 2.1 through 2.7.
No second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. All right, with that, we'll move on to our regular agenda. And up first, we have a presentation from our planning department. And I will turn it over to, looks like we've got Mary Miller here with us.
Are we doing public comment?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Thank you. I got thrown off by the proclamation. I apologize, Mary. I was fast forwarding and getting my order of operation out. I apologize, everybody, after all that preamble. We'll go ahead and open up the floor for general public comment. So anybody who is in the building with us may start. I see somebody standing up. And just as a reminder, please state your name and residence for the meeting minutes. And if you will this evening, write your name down on that list on the way out. That'd be helpful.
I was so disappointed for a moment. I'm going to call my few moments here today going broke. Fire department has funding needs. The system's already overstressed. It's likely to get
Sorry, can you
worse.
say your name? Could
Oh,
we
I'm
have the
sorry, it's
people?
John
Thank-
Ims. Fire department has funding needs. System already stressed, likely to get worse. Burton Nash has funding needs as it apparently goes over a financial cliff. City overage of $6.5 million that I'm sure the county will help with due to the shared governance impact. Substantial amount of LDCHA program is funded from HUD. 22% of supportive housing projects are from the American Rescue Plan, formerly called the COVID Plan. Think that funding will last? Every federal granting agency is reviving and reevaluating grant conditions, just like DOT did. The U.S. government is $37 trillion in debt, no more pennies from heaven. So we have to constantly raise taxes to pay commitments and then borrow for county bonds and eventually pay it back. Cracks are appearing in the funding models for both county and city. So I'd like to offer a quote with apologies to Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. The character Mike Campbell was asked, "How did you go bankrupt?" "Two ways," Mike said, "gradually and then suddenly." "What brought it on?" "Partners," said Mike. "I had a lot of community partners. Then I had creditors too." Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else here for public comment?
Good evening, Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Mike Herold. I live at 2918 West 7th Street, and I was a supportive housing case manager at Burt Nash until the recent layoffs. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of not only the Burt Nash Employees Union, Community Mental Health Workers United, but concerned members of the Douglas County public as well. When the shocking news broke of the financial exigency of the center and subsequent layoffs, many members of the public have understandably assumed that this was due to funding cuts from the Trump administration. However, those have not hit yet. Under the leadership of Patrick Smith and his team, the center has made a number of worrying financial and ethical decisions that have contributed to the state we find the agency in today. Our union members floated a number of ideas to curb the financial damage, such as some employees taking voluntary pay cuts or voluntarily moving to part-time to hopefully prevent the layoffs. Unfortunately, no such solutions were considered, mostly due to the directors waiting into the final hour to bring this to our attention. After all, one of the motivating factors for organizing our union in January was our concerns about the financial decisions of leadership and working together to improve the center for the benefit of the community. For example, the adoption and messy implementation of expensive AI program Elios was and is widely unpopular among the people actually expected to use it. Implementation of electronic health record, which is not able to collect vital data for the state to ensure funding, as well as rumors of the EHR not being able to submit billing properly, run rampant with no director confirming or denying the rumors. Employees report a senior director boasting of skipping the grant funding stage of CCBHC and rushing to be the first community mental health center to become a CCBHC. A year ago, Burt Nash hired another company to complete a compensation study for employee wages, with leadership not being able to provide how the raises were given, what data was used, and how the compensation study works. It was simply a graph with no details, with an email where executive staff praised themselves for their work. Personal vanity projects of leadership have no place here. I will now hand off the rest of the statement to Michaela Reid. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michaela Reid. I'm a resident of Lawrence, and I'm currently a case manager at the Treatment and Recovery Center here in town. I'm here to continue our CMHWU statement. Because we provide such a vital service to our community, these layoffs and the way they were handled will have a devastating impact. We estimate that at least 488 clients were directly affected by these layoffs. Providers were unable to speak with their clients, some of them children, and explain what was happening. Burt Nash has a documented history of walking people out well before their final day when they resign, preventing them from providing clients a safe and trauma-informed handoff, risking further disruption to the client's mental health. Many of the leaders at Burt Nash are licensed social workers or have a background in social work. They should know that this practice is highly unethical. None of the 21 directors were laid off, while many of their salaries are 4 times more than most providers, even after the cuts that they'll be taking. It's our feeling that directors work to ensure their employment was safe while harming the community's care. It is our concern that with continued financial hardships coming from the Trump administration, Burt Nash's executive team will target vital departments and teams who serve the community rather than looking inward. Although no layoffs have happened at the TRC, the employees are bracing themselves for higher turnover. The TRC has already been working in borderline dangerous conditions due to understaffing and undertraining. Earlier this month, a letter written by TRC employees was sent to the Director of Crisis Services. It was signed by 90 Burt Nash employees. We urged him to step in and improve conditions. We know that future cuts to mental health and public services are on the horizon. We want to ensure that the legacy and positive impact of Burt Nash continues. We have lost all confidence that the current leadership is fit to properly navigate that damage, given the hole that they have already dug themselves in. We hope that you will take these concerns seriously and do what you can to hold those responsible accountable to the clients we serve and the taxpayers who fund the center. Thank you for your time and attention to these matters. We will now read the personal testimony submitted to you by former and current Burt Nash employees and concerned members of the public. We hope the community will also continue to support the much-needed Medicaid expansion, or even better, Medicaid for all for the health of our community. Thank you.
For future commenters, just for time's sake, I might suggest you can make a comment and then sign in afterwards, and the next person can come up and start. That's perfectly fine.
I'm going to read really fast. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Tyler Novaria, and I am a former case manager at Burt Nash. I am here today to read the personal testimony submitted by 2 Burt Nash employees, both current and former. The first is from Rebecca Pickering, parent support specialist. I do not work for fun. I work to support my family and keep a roof over their heads and food in their bellies. The stress created by the recent situation has been unbearable. We were told on Wednesday that by Friday we might not have a job. They didn't tell us who, and they didn't tell our managers who was going to be cut. I showed up on Friday sick to my stomach because I knew that could be the last day of my job. And even if I didn't lose my job, I knew that some of my coworkers were going to lose theirs. This has affected my clients. They have come to rely on the coworkers that lost their jobs. The clients that I'm talking about are children, and it is hard for children to connect with somebody and then to have them suddenly gone without even getting to say goodbye or having closure is irresponsible. On Friday, nobody could focus on their job. I had coworkers who were crying. The clients that we met with on Friday knew something was wrong. They had read it in the paper about the layoffs. How did we get so far in debt? Couldn't something have been done sooner? I feel like the upper management spends money recklessly and then puts all the demand on people in lower positions to make it up. The level of productivity that they want us to meet is incredibly hard to get to. In fact, very few people get to that number, and if they do, it is causing high stress. Before these layoffs even happened, we lost a lot of good workers due to the lack of raises and the pressure created by upper management. We have been scrambling to cover their caseloads, and now we get treated poorly by taking some of our money from our paychecks and putting us through the stress and trauma of possibly losing our jobs. The next statement is from Jeremy High, a former Burt Nash therapist. A pillar of our community is crumbling before our eyes, a pillar that offers life-saving services to those in our community who are among its most vulnerable, a pillar that cannot fail, a pillar whose leadership's lack of transparency and frank mismanagement threatens the very well-being of our community. I proudly began working at Burt Nash in May of 2021 and had to step away from it in December of 2024 when echoes of impending crisis became too loud to ignore and the ensuing mission drift became untenable for me to continue my work professionally and ethically. In my time at Burt Nash, I had the pleasure of working as a therapist on the DBT, AOP, and finally in the acute care team, and as a supervisor on the assertive community treatment team. During that time, I saw my will and the will of some of the most incredible mental health professionals broken repeatedly by confusing messaging from leadership that only ever focused on how we as laborers need to make more money for the agency, all while ignoring that the agency was growing at a pace that far exceeded its capacity, never once slowing down to catch our breath and always placing all of the responsibility for this on those who had the least say in its formation. When we raised concerns, we were placated with tales of growing pains and distraction from what we now know to be gross mismanagement. What you see now is the curtain being pulled back in a very public way, exposing just that, gross mismanagement.
That's
This is
fine.
salvageable, but not without major oversight and major ideological change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Noble, and I'm a former therapist at Burt Nash. And I'm here today to read 2 personal testimonies by Burt Nash employees, both current and former. My name is Mackenzie Dick, and I'm an LMSW. I worked at Burt Nash CMHC as a SED waiver qualified mental health professional from November 2023 to June 2024. During my time at Burt Nash, I was astounded to find that they prioritized money earned well over quality of service. Our worth as professionals at Burt Nash was equivalent to the price tag of how much income we brought into the organization. While employed at Burt Nash, a coworker required FMLA in order to care for their mental and physical health needs. Instead of hiring another professional or assigning the staff's role to a member of our leadership team, I was required to fulfill most of the duties of both of our roles. When this inevitably led to failure to maintain and complete tasks, I was met with disdain and no consideration was given to the dual roles. I quit my position at this time, and it was made clear to me that if I had not quit, I would have been fired for my inability to manage much more than I was initially hired for. The staff at Burt Nash are all incredible people filled with a desire to make an impact. One by one, I saw my colleagues become disillusioned by this flawed way of prioritizing income at the cost of disenfranchisement of their own staff and clients. We are not expendable. Burt Nash CMHC needs transparency and accountability. We must find a better path forward. As a former employee, I voiced multiple concerns about the lack of quality of the billing department and its duty to its clients. I tried to initiate multiple protocols to better the processes which were ignored or taken over by someone with no knowledge. I had a director who didn't know we could bill out-of-state Medicaid. I was under constant monitoring and scrutiny until I was eventually told to pack up my things and escorted out of the building. There are client charts that have insurance cards sitting there, never been billed. They have overseas billing who does more than in-house. I was undergoing active mental abuse, needed surgery, and was going to be homeless, and they still proceeded to fire me, knowing everything they were taking away from me and at what time. They watched me at my computer, cry daily. My director started the same week as I did, and I had more managerial skills than she and common sense as well from a former employee. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michaela Reid. On May 2nd, I was thrown into a mental health crisis as I was yet again a victim of discrimination and bullying at Hillcrest Elementary. I was thrown into a mental health crisis and took 2 weeks of leave. That was not an option. I was comforted with the notion that this effort was to save my life and my job because I am damn good at what I do. I met with the head of DEI and was further comforted with dialogue about meetings and conversations that would take place to advocate for me and the good human that I am. I was encouraged to hurry and complete FMLA paperwork in order to further save my job and myself. On Friday, May 23rd, the last business day before I was supposed to reunite with my supervisor to discuss coming back to work, I received a call. At 10:32, I was informed that I no longer had a job. I was told by phone and then told that I needed to meet in person via Teams or over the phone to further discuss my termination. I refused without union representation. At 10:56 a.m., I received an email from HR letting me know that my FMLA had been approved, yet I no longer had a job. However, HR was not aware. Later at 2:34, I was texted, quote, "Nikki, I need to formally tell you that your position has been eliminated." What was the reason, I asked? None was given. Who will tell my families of my kids, I asked. And that will fall on me next week, my supervisor. Who will be at Hillcrest next year to take care of my kids, I asked. I'm not sure we'll have anyone there, I was told. As I sobbed in the phone, triggered, shaking, panicking, distraught, and betrayed, I was provided no answers, none. Hillcrest Elementary, I'm just not even going to read this. Hillcrest Elementary has been dubbed where the world goes to school in Lawrence. It's a mostly brown school ran by a white staff. I am their human that they see. It's me. My caseload was full and I was making productivity, which is hard to do. There have been no answers. And so now brown people like me have no mental health services in Lawrence.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and community members. My name is Rachel Sandel and I live in Lawrence, and I am a licensed master social worker. I come to you today concerned about recent layoffs at Burt Nash and their implications for client care. I was hired at Burt Nash in February of 2024. In mid-May of this year, I submitted my resignation with 30 days notice in accordance with Burt Nash's policies and the ethical standards required by the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board. The standard exists to ensure continuity of care and prevent harm to clients, and I must follow it to remain licensed in good standing. Human Resources staff told me my last day would be June 12th. Last Friday, May 23rd, I was let go without ample notice, severance pay, or an opportunity to notify my clients. I learned today that a client was told that I left the agency, not that I was laid off. This narrative does not reflect my care for my clients. It erases my own grief at the abrupt loss of these therapeutic bonds. And worst of all, it undermines clients' trust in me as a provider and in Burt Nash as an agency. I spent all of my tenure at Burt Nash as a child and family therapist. A huge range of challenges and goals drive children to mental health treatment. But one factor that unites nearly all child clients is that at one time or another, these children have received the message that the world is not a safe or stable place. They have come to believe that the people who are supposed to listen will ignore, and that the people who are supposed to stay will leave. So much of my job was to create an experience that casts doubt on those beliefs, to instill hope in a safe world. I did that by being where I said I would be and by doing the things I said I would do. In laying off 29 staff without notice, the majority of whom were direct service staff, that is, they worked directly with clients, Burt Nash's leadership undid my clients' hard-won progress and in doing so hurt them. Commissioners and community members, my clients are your children. After all, Douglas County is the community that Burt Nash serves. I would like to leave you with 3 questions. First, if your child were suffering and you didn't know what to do, how would you want to be helped? Second, when it came time for that help to end, how would you want it to end? And third, in light of these layoffs and the way they were executed, how confident are you that Burt Nash's current leadership can provide you and your child with the help that they deserve? Thank you for your time.
Howard Callahan. I live in Pinckney. I work on the Burt Nash PATH program. The nature of nonprofit funding is to be split across multiple funders and to try to adapt all of those streams to fit community need and construct programming. That funding is usually split between private development fundraising to seek large sum donors, usually a small fraction of an agency's funds, municipal, county, state, and federal grants, and in the case of a community mental health center, is Medicaid billing. Burt Nash has long attempted to place client and community need first, which means that a good amount of the clients who do not have Medicaid are served anyway. Community partnerships and grants come with expectations and requirements that are not only easily reconciled with Medicaid-driven funding. The CCBHC model Burt Nash recently adopted, which has been adopted as the model that will eventually be enacted by the state, by Governor Kelly, reimburses on the basis of a ratio between Medicaid clients and non-Medicaid clients. These are among many factors that have led up to this crisis and will probably be much of what the Burt Nash administration focuses on. There are accountability and transparency problems with Burt Nash for sure. That's a large part of why we unionized. But that's also true of every service agency in town. In my personal experience, when other service agencies have hit this kind of challenge, there's been a pattern. Partners get frustrated and start pulling back financial support. The agency contracts to account for the ways it was overextended. Working conditions worsen because the need is still higher than the agency capacity and funding is sparse. So performance expectations get more strict with no accounting for difficulties. Internal systems problems are shifted to blame on staff performance. Fewer clients get worse care. Agency's reputation further tanks. They stop being able to attract or retain staff, and some combination of the agency focusing on optics, administrative turnover, and at least talk of the agency being taken over by a city or county or some other actor. Administrative change may be necessary, okay, but the next administration is going to be confronted by exactly the same problems. The unionized staff at Burt Nash do not want what I just described. We don't want it. We want to help our organization work better. We want to solve problems and improve care. We need to be able to retain staff to do that. We need all community partners and support to do that. We need our agency and administration in a position to cooperate with us to do that. The current national political situation is precarious and terrifying. The care environment since the pandemic started has been crisis after major change after crisis. I honestly don't know in your considerations how you balance placing expectations of accountability with extending grace, but I urge you to dig deep and find that balance. I assure you that the community Mental Health Workers United are striving to do exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Next.
Good afternoon, commissioners and guests, or I should say, Douglas County residents. My name is Carlen Roberts. I do live in Lawrence or Douglas County, and I previously worked for Bert Nash. I was separated March the 2nd due to some, whatever you may want to call it. However, I wanted to share, I didn't really come to speak, but I am going to speak. I went to Bert Nash or applied for a job at Bert Nash for the assertive community treatment team as a therapist outside of coming from LMH, because over the years, which was over 10 years from working for DCF, other entities in the community and LMH, I learned from patients or clients that they dislike Bert Nash. Bert Nash doesn't do anything to help them. Whether they were kids who are now adults who said they were harmed by how they were supported. So for me, instead of saying I'm just gonna listen to them, I'm like, I'm gonna apply for a job at Bert Nash and I'm gonna see what I can do to help. And during that process of working for Bert Nash as the assertive community treatment therapist, I realized that as a new clinician with my clinical license, there wasn't any support. I needed some help because I've always worked in the ER or other aspects of the mental health spaces. And I'm like, I need help knowing how to navigate the community mental health space. And I was told I have a clinical license, I should know how to do that. And I'm like, this is not the field that I got my license in. And there were pushbacks and questions as to how I didn't know how to do certain things. And I'm like, I know I don't know how to do those things. That's why I'm asking for the right help. Myself, I've attempted to apply for various positions, higher positions, because I felt like I could guide staff in the context of support. Like I'm a good teacher or trainer. Instead, there were a lot of nepotism in how persons were hired. There needs to be, what I would like to say within the 1 minute is there needs to be, if you're gonna give Bert Nash any funds, there need to be some strict guidelines as to what that money is gonna be used for. Management willing to listen to staff. There are many staff at Bert Nash below the executive space that do have these skill set that they're going to pay millions of dollars for outside of the agency. These are people, there's like 1,000 years of knowledge if you choose to take all the people together. So I'm asking if, I know you had said that Bert Nash should be given the funds. Let's not just give them the funds without knowing what we're doing. If the funds are going to be given, it's very important that you take into consideration how that's done.
Time. Thank you.
Hi, County Commissioners. My name is Beth Roman. I live here in Lawrence, Kansas. I was fired on May 5th from my front desk job in Child and Family Services after 12 years of service. I was not one of the recently laid off staff members, but my dismissal was equally damaging. After consistent staff turnover over the years, I became one of the only points of consistency for the children and families. I love them with all my heart, even in the small role I played for their lives. My dismissal felt as if I was a victim of a long con. Bert Nash took everything from me. over $4,000 of vacation time that was taken from me due to an outdated and cruel policy. But they also took away my income and my independence. And then after several attempts to contact me with HR, which went completely ignored, I still don't know why I was let go or why I was fired. And it just didn't ending over these last few days with the staff that were laid off recently. It broke my heart. I wasn't involved directly, but I was kept updated and working in child and family for 12 years, seeing that care continually being recycled from therapist to therapist, from case manager to case manager. It stalls, it doesn't improve their health care at all. And my heart breaks for those families and the staff that had to lose everything in one day. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darcia Collins. Until this past Friday, I was the sole child and family services nurse at Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center. According to research by Charles Schwab, 59% of Americans are just one paycheck away from homelessness. This is something Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center should know better than most. How is it that such an informed group of executives lacked such foresight in allowing the financial state of Burt Nash to reach one of financial extingency, rendering them unable to afford to follow their own layoff policy by providing either 30 days notice of termination or 30 days severance pay to the 29 employees laid off May 23rd. Also allotting us 7 business days of remaining insurance coverage. The sudden loss of health insurance has forced me to cancel a scheduled surgery that my supervisors were aware of, and the uncertainty has been overwhelming. I would like to caution bailing out a company under this current leadership. As the community health center, what regard was shown to their employees' mental health or physical well-being? Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center has created their own financial crisis, and now it has become mine and ours. I just, once again, would ask you to proceed with caution in the management of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Oh, I see somebody coming.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Thomas Bowman. I am a supportive housing case manager at Burt Nash, Douglas County, Lawrence resident. I've worked at Burt Nash for 6.5 years now in housing case management. I've witnessed the growth during that time that Burt Nash has had, with teams and services expanding rapidly. I'm part of multiple cooperative projects between Burt Nash and the city, the county, tenants to homeowners, many other community organizations. I was very excited when I discovered that some of my coworkers were forming a union, because I joined those efforts because I thought it would help address some of the systemic issues that I've seen over the time that I've been with Burt Nash. At this point, I would not recommend Burt Nash as a provider or an employer to anyone, for some of the reasons that you've heard today. While frontline staff continues to do the best they can in an already problematic healthcare system, the issues have only seemed to exacerbate into antagonism since the union effort was made public. I won't list any of the issues. You've heard some of them here. I could speak for hours about issues that I've personally witnessed with Burt Nash in my time there. I'll say that many of them, including the current budget issues, have been open secrets to staff. We have individually and collectively made efforts to try to address concerns in coordination with managers and executives. We've generally faced silence and retaliation from above for that. Employees who have spoken up have faced targeted retaliation, including situations like employees being walked out before their resignation dates. When asked about working conditions, standards that we've had set, including doing our homework to find the the documented federal or state guidelines for those things, coming with as educated questions as we can, we are still met with vague answers and gaslighting at times from our executive staff. My hopes are that the union efforts will force Bert Nash to follow its own policies and mission statements because the current executive team has failed in that. I hope that with the current federal government, we are definitely facing issues. And under this administration, I would doubt that Bert Nash will stay open much longer if we face full Medicaid cuts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Douglas County Commissioners. My name is Payton Smith. I am the organizer for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 304. I am not a citizen of Douglas County. I do live in Johnson County, but I did grow up here, so I consider myself a Lawrencian. So I'm here to speak on behalf of IBEW Local 304 that represents the Bert Nash workers. Let me begin by introducing IBEW Local 304. We represent approximately 2,000 skilled tradespeople across the state of Kansas through more than 20 collective bargaining agreements. Since our founding in 1933, we have consistently demonstrated our ability to foster productive labor management relationships that meets the needs of both the workers and employers. In 2024, we organized the employees of Bert Nash and have since been working in good faith towards securing a fair and comprehensive labor agreement. This process has involved navigating various operational and workplace challenges that we believe should be addressed through formal negotiations. Most recently, Bert Nash declared an economic exigency. We were consulted on the matter, and while confidentiality agreements limit the detail we can publicly disclose, information was appropriately shared with our members in accordance of those agreements. We respectfully ask the council to consider the current challenges facing Bert Nash, not only in terms of its impact on our members, but also on the broader Douglas County community. And we urge you to review the county budget for any relief or support that could be offered to help Bert Nash restore its capacity to serve. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Good evening, Douglas County Commissioners. My name is Matthew Herbert, and I'm a Douglas County resident of 31 years. I came tonight to hear the Bert Nash employees' words, but I had no intention of speaking, but can't help but point out the juxtaposition that is existing, where we have a community that is about to suffer a major setback in service due to what accounts to about a $2.5 million budget discrepancy. All the while, we have $15 million sitting in a behavioral sales tax budget with no identifiable plan. I've met with several of you individually and have been told that the plan is to create a CIP-style budget, whereas this money will be allocated to specific projects. I would warn you about the metaphorical extreme home makeover problem of infusing one-time capital into an I-appeal project and instead of using it for operational purposes. The problem that occurs is that in moving with a one-time I-appeal project, you create a situation where you're able to have something you can point at and it's a political victory. But then after that one-time infusion occurs, you leave no sustainability or operational funds. We face a crisis where we are likely to set back service to this community to 2010 levels. And in doing so, we sit on a $15 million budget of money given in a behavioral health sales tax with no direct plan of infusing it. I would point out that the individuals who spoke tonight worked previously for the single largest agency of Douglas County mental health. And I would point out that the situation that we now face could be easily solved without putting more than a 20% deficiency into an existing $15 million budget that grows every single day. If, however, the goal is to use it as a CIP, I would point to one specific program within Burt Nash that I fear is going to suffer as cuts are made, and that is child services, specifically a RAP program. The RAP program was started at Burt Nash in the late 1990s. I myself was a RAP kid during its pilot infancy, and now I see the program suffering greatly, and I see the city backing out of funding. I see USD 497 offering no funding. And I hope that potentially the behavioral health sales tax passed by Douglas County voters may be a solution to this. Thank you for your attention this evening and your consideration going forward.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to provide public comment? Come on up.
Hello, I am Kate Bonokin. I live in Lawrence. And I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, and don't let this paper fool you because it doesn't have anything on it and I'm not great with public speaking. So here we go. I have worked at Burt Nash as a full-time employee for 4 years. Thursday, I got my congratulations from HR, but it was a couple weeks before. Before that, I did contract therapy 20 hours a week during COVID while working as a crisis clinician in the emergency room. And previous to that, I had the pleasure of doing my MSW clinical practicum at the team that I was just laid off from. I know that a lot of people have said things that I strongly agree with and have witnessed in before times, before certifications, before whatever, and now. And I believe that approximately 13 pages of testimony was submitted yesterday from multiple people from the union. So I won't go into what the limited stuff I know that was in there. This is an important community. I was in a totally different, well, a few different sectors before going into mental health. I decided a little later in life after moving back to the US from Africa that I wanted to get my MSW, get another master's, take out a bunch of student loans. And I knew when I went exactly what I wanted to do, and it was work at Burt Nash. I've been proud to work there, and the last 2 years have been excruciating. And they have been so important, and I have stayed, even with a raise, you know, because when I went there, I was making a lot, not very much, not enough to pay my student loans. I was very committed. I have had so much privilege to walk alongside so many committed people that are so intelligent and there for all the right reasons. And I have been devastated as clients who were abruptly discharged from my care have found me online and sent me some amazing and really difficult messages to read. And I'm glad that some of them have thought to find me. I want things said today taken seriously. Burt Nash is so crucially important. But as a member of the board of Just Food, I also know how important it is for board of director to sometimes be very involved. And I think that time is very much past. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to provide public comment? Come on up.
Just like Kate, I'm also terrified of public speaking, so I will try to keep this brief. My name is Marbie McQueen, and I am a licensed master of social work. I started my first year as a therapist with Bert Nash. I was affected in the layoffs that happened this Friday. I have a testimony that was submitted anonymously, but the courageous people here today moved me to speak. I have so much to say about Bert Nash, but we'll keep it to this. I'm incredibly disappointed in this agency's leadership. Bert Nash has a duty to provide essential mental health care to this community. This goal will not be reached by leadership controlling the agency and frontline workers through a system of fear. A system that lacks accountability, transparency, and compassion for both clients and staff alike. Wednesday, midday, we received an all-staff email that layoffs would occur by Friday. Myself and fellow staff were expected to carry on with business as usual, despite not knowing if we would have jobs and the ability to meet with clients as usual the following week. I was unable to eat or sleep properly the rest of the week, and I'm sure many of my fellow staff were feeling the same way. Friday, when I came into the office, I was let go. I asked for a minute to cry alone and was denied this. I asked if I would be able to have final sessions with my clients and was denied this as well, despite working on a team that serves high-risk populations. I am deeply grieving the sudden loss of my clients and incredibly worried about the effects this sudden loss will have on them. It is my opinion that Bert Nash leadership needs to be held accountable for the inexcusable ways in which they enacted these layoffs and the turn and burn culture that they have bred. If there is to be hope that such an important pillar of mental health in this community continues its mission, I cannot see a path forward that includes those who set the events of last week in motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Marbie. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide public comment before we look to Zoom participants? Okay, seeing no hands and no one standing up. Has anybody raised their hand virtually, Sarah?
Yes, got one person online. Cherylyn Wells, you've been given permission to speak. You've got 3 minutes for public comment. Cherylyn?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, something I'd like to say. I hadn't received services from Bert Nash in like 25 years, but I called the mobile response team. I was feeling really confused. Okay, they came, they were fine. But I received a bill almost 9 months later. And I called them about the bill. And they did not ask. I actually have Medicare. And they didn't ask for my Medicare number. They said, well, since it's so long and this and that, we'll just write it off. But they didn't even ask for my Medicare number. Now, I used to do billing because I worked at Independent Sync. I did billing for psychiatric services. It is not that hard. You just have to have some notes someplace and know the code, and you can bill. It really is not that hard. But what concerns me, if I'm getting a bill 9 months later, is some of the billing for the insurance simply not being done in a timely manner, so they're losing money for some reason. Not clear to me. I mean, I have no complaints about the people that came out here, but I don't understand why exactly they're so behind in their billing. Somebody got up at the city commission meeting and the billing person told them they were 2 years behind. Well, now, when it comes to insurance, if they're that far behind, after a year with Medicare and Medicaid, you cannot bill anymore. Now, I don't know if this is a major factor in their finances. I have no idea. I'm clueless. But you would think that getting on top of the billing might help things. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherylyn. Is there anybody else who's raised their hand virtually, Sarah? Okay.
Oh, that's the only hand we have.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We do really value and appreciate the input, and a reiteration that you're welcome to reach out to commissioners at any time outside of our public meetings as well. Having closed public comment, now we will move on to our regular agenda item. I apologize again for jumping the gun there earlier. Mary Miller will provide a presentation to us, and I will turn it over to her. Do you need an assist, Mary?
Felt like I was going to get it, but
It's no rush. I just want to offer.
yeah, I think I might have it. Robin comes and helps me. Oh, it's right there. Thanks. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Mary Miller, a City County Planner, and this is a rezoning request for approximately 30 acres. It is located in the very northwest portion of the county. It has frontage on and takes access from North 2100 Road, and this is a graphic showing the subject property. As I said, it's about 30 acres, and it's commonly known as the Burning Barrel Farm, and they have a registered agritourism use. And I believe, yes, the applicant are here today, and they can provide more information on the agritourism use, but just basically it's a farm. They do farm to dinner or farm to table dinners. They have agricultural uses, gardening, they raise the livestock here. They also have small events where they utilize that pond, and they do farm tours and other activities like that. The reason they're requesting the rezoning is they want to build their residence on a parcel separate from the farm, the agritourism business. One option to do that and not rezone is to divide off a small parcel for the residents and then do an agreement called an agricultural natural resource protection agreement. But that means you can't get building permits on the remainder of the property. It has to be preserved and not developed. And as they do an agritourism business, they need building permits for their buildings. It's required. So they can't go that route. So there's no option for them with the current zoning. And so they are requesting rezoning to the Ag 2 district, which is the next zoning district, the next agricultural zoning district. And they're requesting, this shows their concept plan, they're proposing to divide off 10 acres. That's because that's the minimum size parcel that's allowed in the Ag 2 district. And this is kind of shows how they propose or how they're considering dividing up their property. So when we look at rezonings, we have several review criteria that we look at. But first, I just wanted to go through the land division options. In the unincorporated area, we tie our land divisions very closely to the zoning districts. In the Ag 1 district, the only land division process you can do to end up with a buildable parcel is the agricultural subdivision boundary survey. That's an exemption. And you have a 20-acre parcel minimum. And so as they only have 30 acres, they're not able to go through that exemption. The next zoning district, the one they're looking at, Ag 2, the only land division that you can do in this district and end up with developable parcels is a certificate of survey. You have to have a minimum of 20 acres. You can only have a maximum of 2 parcels, and the minimum parcel size is 10 acres apiece. And so these are the rezoning review criteria. These are listed in the staff report, and I'm going to go through them hopefully relatively briefly. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. We always look at, is the proposed rezoning and land use compatible with the existing zoning and land use in the area? The area is all zoned agricultural. There's Ag 1 for agricultural and Ag 2 for transitional agriculture. The only difference between these 2 districts is the size of parcel that's allowed. If you're smaller than 20 acres, you have to have Ag 2. The asterisks are, this is from a graphic in the staff report, and these are showing where the parcels are 10 acres. And so the parcel that's being proposed on the left is 10 acres. So it'd be similar to the size of the parcels in the area, and it would be developed with a residence. They all are developed as residences except for the one just to the west, and it's currently undeveloped. So the zoning and land use that's being proposed would be very similar and compatible with what's there now. Another criteria is the zoning and land use compatible with the character of the area? And normally when we look at the character of the area, we look about a mile from the subject property. And the little red dots show where I was able to find residences. I can obviously easily miss some because I use the GIS maps, but this gives you an idea of where the residences are located. They're pretty well evenly scattered throughout the area. And then we look at the size of the parcels of the development pattern. And I actually added the size of the acreage of the larger parcels because we have some very large parcels. We have 160 acres, 156 acres. Lost my cursor right here. Just to the east, we have 116 acres. So we do have areas of large parcels. Some of those are not agricultural. They're wooded because of the topography of the area. But the subject property is located in an area where there already are, as we noted in the slide before this, there are already small parcels. And when I get to the section where it asks, is it compatible to comprehensive plan? The comprehensive plan recommends that we kind of balance. We want to provide housing opportunities, but we want to protect contiguous areas of agricultural land. And we also want to minimize the conversion of agricultural land to non-agricultural uses. The intent is to continue to use this parcel for agriculture. And so, but one of the ways we look at trying to protect contiguous areas of agricultural land is that we would only recommend approval of a rezoning if it was what you would call infill, if it's an area that's already been fragmented with smaller parcels. So if this request was for the parcel to the south or the east, staff would likely not be able to recommend approval just because we would be introducing smaller parcels into that area unless we found that the land was of poor agricultural quality. That would be another reason to allow the rezoning. But since on that blue highlighted areas are showing where there are areas of smaller parcels. And so this property is in an area with the smaller parcels and is what we would kind of consider loosely infill. We're not encroaching into the larger agricultural area. So the proposed rezoning and land use would be in keeping with the character of the area. We look at what would be the impact on environmentally sensitive lands. There will be some impact. The only environmentally sensitive land on the property is the prime farmland, which is why they operate as a farm. They intend to put their residents somewhere in the southwest corner. So while they would be utilizing some of the prime farmland, it would be just taking away from the periphery. It wouldn't be fragmenting it or dividing it in half. So it'd probably be the least invasive. And when we do a land division in Ag 2, we can only do a certificate of survey. And with a certificate of survey, if you have environmentally sensitive lands, you have to show your building envelope on the survey. We try to encourage them to protect as much as the environmentally sensitive lands as possible. The code limits us to being able to require up to 40%. And so when they do the certificate of survey, there would be a building envelope limiting where they could build. And so the remainder of that would be unbuildable. We always look at, is the land suitable for agriculture? And the land is very well suited for agriculture. The green area on the left graphic, that is the prime farmland. On the right, we show where the high quality soils are. Our comprehensive plan looks at class 1 and 2 soils as being high quality. And the orange is the class 2 soils. That's on the east side, which would not be disturbed with this proposed development. And it is well suitable for agriculture. And they do intend to continue the agricultural use. And then with the compliance to comprehensive plan, they want us to protect high quality agricultural soils. And as I noted on the previous slide, that would be on the east side of the property. So that should be protected. To protect contiguous amounts of agricultural land for continued productive future use. And that's why we look at where is it infill and where would be encroaching into the larger agricultural area. And in this case, we would not be encroaching into the larger areas of agricultural land. To minimize the conversion to non-agricultural uses, it is their intention to continue to use the land agriculturally, but to build their residence on that property. And then again, to maintain working lands and high quality soils. And then there is a goal to provide housing opportunities while conserving the overall rural character. And that's kind of a balancing job, which is why we look at where would it be most appropriate to have a rezoning so that we could provide housing opportunities without impacting the rural character. And so in staff's opinion, it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Some of the other review criteria, conformance with area plans. This area is not within the UGA. There are no area plans for this area. What is the suitability of the property to the uses to which it's restricted with the current zoning? It is well suited. However, the uses in the Ag 1 and Ag 2 are identical. So it is also well suited to the uses that are allowed in the Ag 2 district. How long has the property been vacant as zoned? It has been developed with a farm use. I think there used to be a farm residence on the property, so it is not vacant. The extent to which the zoning would detrimentally affect nearby property. The intent is to develop a parcel the same size as the nearby properties with a residential use similar to the adjacent properties. So there is no detrimental effect identified. And so the last criteria, what is the gain to the public health, safety, and welfare if we were to deny the rezoning? As there are no negative impacts, there would be no public gain to be had from the denial versus the hardship to the applicant. And the applicant did provide a narrative explaining why they wanted to put their residence on a separate parcel, and that should have been in the packet. And they're here today to explain as well. There's lending, financial, and other considerations why they would want their residence on a separate parcel. So there would be hardship to the applicant if the rezoning were denied. And the Planning Commission considered this at their April 21st meeting, and they voted unanimously to forward this to you with a recommendation for approval. And so that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions, and the applicant is here today.
Thank you very much, Mary. We always open this opportunity for the applicant to provide any further information or details that you would like for the commission to hear before, and then we might have questions for both you and or staff.
Hello, can you hear me okay from here?
You're welcome to pick that up if it's more comfortable, and it helps.
If you can hear me like this.
Go
is that
ahead.
Okay. Hello, commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. For anyone who is unfamiliar with us, the Burning Barrel is a farm, restaurant, and event space in Lecompton, just 20 minutes west of downtown Lawrence, as Mary demonstrated. The focus of our registered agritourism business is to provide a beautiful Kansas setting for guests to enjoy nourishing food and beverages while they reconnect with nature and with one another. We grow as many of the ingredients as we can, and this includes our pastured heritage breed pigs, poultry, eggs, vegetables, fruits, and herbs. What we do not produce ourselves is procured from other local farms. And as we like to say, everything but the salt came from right here in Kansas, and the sugar and the coffee. But aside from that, everything came from right around here. As we embark upon our 4th year in business, demand for our offerings at the Burning Barrel continues to grow. We offer on-site dinners June through October, private events, weddings, concerts, and educational workshops. The unique nature of our business as a true farm-to-table event venue, winery, and future distillery requires a devotion to the core elements of our concept. We spend lots of time and effort focusing on our land, our animals, and the commercial kitchen, where we process the raw commodities into the food and beverages for our guests. Allowing our 30-acre parcel to be rezoned and divided would enable us to build a home for our family to live on the farm rather than to commute there. The business operations are intensive and require that we live in a residence we hope to construct on site. Separating the residence onto an adjoining parcel is necessary to meet modern requirements for financing and ensuring the construction and use of that residence. Moreover, the separation will enable our operation to benefit from a range of risk mitigation measures and potential reinvestment opportunities that are only available if our homestead is on a separate parcel. With continued growth, we anticipate the need for additional reinvestment in the business, potentially from additional partners, and that necessarily require separation of our personal residence and the very personal investment that it will require. In the case that our request for rezoning is denied, we would need to reimagine the Burning Barrel operation and ultimately retreat from the steady growth and continued reinvestment. And while this endeavor has been fulfilling, it is not currently sustainable with the benefits capable of being realized with the rezoning and the establishing of a home. Thank you for your consideration and support.
Thank you very much. While you're up here, do any commissioners have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for your comments. How about any questions for Mary? Okay, I'm also seeing no head nods. So thank you for the thorough presentation and explanation. We will open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to provide public comment on this item? Seeing none, has anybody raised their hand online, Sarah? Okay, that's a no. So we will close public comment and bring this back to the commission for discussion. Just a quick procedural reminder in case any commissioners have had ex parte communication. This is a land use item, so please go ahead and disclose that. Otherwise, open to any comments or discussion that commissioners would like to have.
Everything that was presented in the staff report was the information that I needed. It seems like a very good way forward for the applicant, and I am supportive of it. I don't have any questions, which we all know is rare.
I have no questions either. I think it was presented very well.
And I would make a motion if you want one.
Go right ahead. Thank you, Commissioner Lee.
Right. I move to approve the request to rezone Z-25-0002, approximately 27.6 acres at 292 North 2100 Road from AG1 to AG2 district, based on the findings presented in the staff report and subject to the conditions listed in the resolution, and adopt resolution 25-24.
A second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you again for being here. And thank you, Mary, for the presentation. We will move on to our second regular agenda item. And am I right that Jill is who will be presenting this item?
Yep.
Take it away.
Commissioners, as I outlined in my agenda item report, what's being requested of you all is to authorize the Deputy County Administrator to sign a sub-grant agreement with the International City County Management Association for participation in the Economic Mobility Community of Practice. As I outlined in the agreement and in the AIR, Douglas County had the opportunity to apply for this grant through ICMA, which is the professional organization that many in our career field participate in. When this opportunity came through, the Deputy County Administrator, Sean Peterson, shared it with me, having understanding of the county's involvement in the community health plan, and in particular, the role of the anti-poverty community health plan as it relates to the economic mobility community of practice that was being advertised. We submitted as a potential challenge that we would like to address by participating in the cohort 2 of the focus areas that are included in the anti-poverty community health plan as potential projects that we could work on. Those 2 projects were to continue to further the strategy to implement a guaranteed income pilot initiative in the 5-year period of the community health plan, or to support a child care scholarship fund in Douglas County. Those were 2 potential projects that we submitted as part of the application process. And then the way that the process has, and we will continue to focus on those projects. More likely than not, the focus of our group is going to be, of our work plan that we're going to be submitting in the next month, is going to be focused on furthering the work of the guaranteed income initiative. And I just want to be real clear that we will not have the capacity or ability to implement that guaranteed income pilot with this grant. The initial thought, and we'll be working on it with our project team to develop the work plan. But the thought is that we can, with this opportunity and the resources that are going to be available to us with working with the cohort and coming out of the conference that was in Baltimore last week, which was really a tremendous experience. I think what I experienced was exactly what what was intended of the cohort, conveners, which was you come to the conference with ideas of projects you can work on, and you get exposed to a variety of different opportunities of projects that are being implemented around the country and new ways of thinking about how cities and counties can positively influence the economic mobility of their community members. So how we apply that to our guaranteed income pilot initiative. One idea that, again, will be developed further with our work group will be how can we further study the lived experience through some qualitative surveying with our community members, our priority population community members, that being single female-headed households who we have identified as being disproportionately experiencing poverty in Douglas County. How can we further understand the lived experiences and the opportunities to positively influence the economic well-being of that population? One thing that we've always committed to in the work of the community health plan, whether that's anti-poverty or I don't want to speak for Bob, but behavioral health and our work on a place for everyone. We are heavily invested from a leadership perspective on convening the work of those three community health plans. We have tried to be very open and honest about, we consider those plans to be living documents. So as we continue to study the role of what a guaranteed income program look like, what does economic mobility look like in our priority population, we may at some point decide that a guaranteed income program may not be the most influential, impactful way to positively influence economic mobility in our priority population. But right now, that does continue to be the strategy that we've identified and we're going to keep working towards and studying. But I just want to be real clear that there's still a lot of work to be done to better understand what are the solutions that are going to positively influence. And we feel like this opportunity is going to be a good one for us, again, to learn what are other communities doing, how can we better understand the best practices and the tools and the resources that are available from different partners that are aligned with ICMA and the Gates Foundation played a significant role in this opportunity and will continue to play a role. So I rambled there. I apologize. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you for the thorough explanation. Go ahead, Commissioner Anderson.
I was just going to say thank you for finding the grant and for applying for it. One of the questions I do have is because this past session, our legislature did pass HB 2101, right, around the guaranteed income program. And they have a desire to review any guaranteed income programs and to approve of those programs. Since you've received this opportunity, do you know if, as you develop the work plan, are you required to have someone at the state review your plan and approve of it prior to its submission?
I think if we got to the point in developing the pilot in the future that we envisioned using taxpayer dollars, but at this point, we don't envision using taxpayer dollars in implementing the pilot. Our hope all along was to seek funding for a pilot initiative through private foundation support as a proof of concept to further it along. So my interpretation of that, my understanding of the legislation is that only if state, local taxpayer dollars are being used to fund any of those activities, and in which case we would have to notify the legislature and get their approval.
Okay. So from a compliance perspective, we're good.
As far as I understand, yes.
Okay. All right. That was my primary question that I had. I just want to make sure from a legal and compliance perspective that we weren't, that we were going to be fine as far as the deadline, right? In the development of the work plan, because the grant states that the work plan will be developed after we make this, after a decision is made.
Yes, and I'm happy to come back to you all with an update on and share the work plan as maybe as part of the manager's memo, so you can see where we landed.
That would be great. Yeah, sure. So I'm curious as to how the work plan will be developed and the work that will be moving forward and the population that you actually identify.
Yeah, I'll just say that we have a guaranteed income pilot work group that helped. So it started with participating in a sprint through Counties for Guaranteed Income and Results for America this past year. And that's representatives from Live Well, Douglas County, the Family Resource Center, the United Way of Caw Valley, and I'm forgetting a couple others, and Children's Community Center, and we have met we met very consistently over the course of almost a year, working through that sprint. And then we got a small grant from Counties for Guaranteed Income to continue to develop what would a pilot initiative look like. And that helped us do the series of data walks that we did that started at the end of last year. And then we did a few in the early part of this year. And then we continued on with just engaging community and understanding what are the concerns and questions that communities have around guaranteed income, and helping understand what are the distinct experiences of the priority population in the community health plan, and show the data of those that documents those experiences. That's what we've used that grant for historically. So I think that kind of work is what we'll continue to do with the ICMA grant, to continue to better understand what is the experience of that population, what are the questions and concerns that our community members have about what would a guaranteed income pilot even look like if we were to initiate it.
And being that there is a lot of research around economic mobility and how it can spur economic growth, right? And the opportunities for women to then find childcare, right? And then to find opportunities for economic mobility. Are you then considering how you will report on this? And if you will then like build this into your dashboard, or like how will we then be able to show the outcomes of this so that we can better understand how it could be sustained moving forward?
Yeah, the last session that I attended as part of the main conference before our cohort got back together in Baltimore on Friday was a presentation that was, it was a presentation of a survey that was performed by the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank, along with United for Alice, which is the United Way Alice Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed Framework, and that leadership, the leadership of that. And it was focused on, they were presenting the findings of a really incredible survey with focus groups of the population of folks that were in the ALICE threshold and below, and really documenting what their lived experience was on a qualitative and a quantitative level. Had a great conversation with the team that did that survey, and they were really excited that A, we were using ALICE in the community health plan, and B, wanted to have a conversation about even just giving us some technical assistance on how to put together. This was a City of Philadelphia survey. What would a smaller survey look like just for Lawrence, Kansas? So doing a similar survey like this could, in my mind, be, I want to bring this back to our work group, but be a really compelling presentation to our community, our funders, and maybe even the state legislature, to help continue to understand what are the challenges that we're trying to address through a guaranteed income program, or perhaps through another solution that could be identified from our subject matter experts who are experiencing these economic challenges.
Any other questions from commissioners?
So I think this is the first conversation we've had with the commission about a guaranteed income concept really at all. I know it's part of the community health plan, which is a community-wide document where we're one partner in that. And I know that the county was a partner in rolling out a film and a discussion. Was able to go to the film, wasn't able to stay for the discussion. So I, first of all, feel like I don't know much about these programs, which I guess is part of a learning cohort. But I guess I kind of intuitively have reservations about guaranteed income as a tool for movement, and part of that is I'm not an economist by any means, and would want to kind of hear more from them about like if if such a thing existed on a, a nationwide scale, does that just readjust prices for everybody versus, on a pilot scale? Does that have the ability to impact or help, individuals? Or if it's a short period of time, does it help? And maybe that's exactly what we're getting to with the planning grant so none of this this award that we're looking at tonight would actually be dollars to people in Douglas County. This is strictly about planning and understanding the issues. Is that correct?
That better understanding the challenges and potential solutions, one of which could be a guaranteed income. I think to have to curate a pilot, we have to, I think we have to have more information about what are these. We've looked at the data. We can continue to look at the data. We've done some focus groups through some one of those screenings that happened in Eudora, and then the Family Resource Center curated a really great conversation with their advisory committee, which are all families that are being served by the Family Resource Center through the Children's Community Center. So we just did a little bit, and now that we have this opportunity, I think there's an opportunity to take a bigger look at and have a better understanding of what is the experience of of our priority population in Douglas County, and again hear from them about what would be the most meaningful strategy to help them feel like they can get ahead. Is it cash assistance? Is it access to underwritten childcare opportunities? Is it workforce training opportunities? It could be a variety of things, and cash assistance may not be the thing. And that's where I think I'm happy to. I think the findings of the survey of the study out of Philadelphia was it's not a long study. I'm happy to share a link as a follow up to this, but it's pretty compelling information. And yeah, I mean, the closest thing to a guaranteed income program that's they've been implemented in a lot of different parts of the country. I think with varying success. But I think the closest thing to it on a national scale is the Earned Income Child Tax Credit, which who knows if that'll come back. There's a lot of discussion about it, but yeah.
This grant would put us in with other communities our size. I mean, how were we chosen, or what's the group look like?
I'm not really sure what the criteria was for selecting. The diversity of communities around the country was there's 15 other communities, cities and counties, everyone from a really small community in Oklahoma, Sallisaw, Oklahoma, which is near Fort Smith, or right near Fort Smith, Arkansas, just over the border, to Laramie, Wyoming, and Homestead, Florida. A real diversity, but I think it was what united all of us was that we were all trying to think comprehensively about what is the unique role of cities and counties in advancing the economic well-being of Douglas County, and what is the role of, and a lot of it is things that we have been working on: housing and homelessness, workforce development. So I think it's just putting some different framing on it, and but I'm not sure what the criteria was.
Okay, keep going. So the grant is $24,000, and the source of that is the Gates Foundation. So it's private money to look into this issue. What county funds then go to match that?
There is no match. I think that the match it's staff time. It's Sean and I being committed to participating in the cohort trainings that we'll participate in. It's Sean and I's time going to attend the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowley. Commissioner Kelly, any questions from you?
No further questions than what's been asked. Appreciate that, commissioners.
How about Commissioner Anderson or Dorsey? Okay, seeing no other questions. I don't have any either. Thank you, Jill, for the presentation and for the discussion. We'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there anybody who would like to provide public comment? Go ahead and come up.
John Ibbs, Lawrence, thanks for bringing up some of the things that you two did. It's what triggered me was the Universal Basic Income Subgrant, but I had to read quite a bit to kind of get through the title of the presentation to see what that was about. I know it's from Gates. I know it's only 24,000. It's really a small amount of money and wouldn't stand up a viable program, so that's fine as far as any state rules go. I guess all that I would like to say is, you said you're spending staff time, you're paid with taxpayer money. I guess you just have to be careful with not crossing the line, because HB 2101 says explicitly you cannot spend taxpayer money. So I don't know how you maneuver that, but the Attorney General lives in town, and I don't think you want to cross lines that make him embarrassed. What I would like to say that's important, I think, is that as you seek out information, I was a written proponent for HB 2101, and there's a substantial body of work that the group went through to get that bill discussed and through state committee. There's 30-odd pilot programs that were examined, and only 9% of the funds, these were actual universal basic income, only 9% of the funds were spent on housing and 2% on health care, and most of the funds in the UBI are spent on retail purchases. So that's just a fact. That's how the money ends up being spent by the folks who receive it. And the guaranteed income programs are often cited as a problem with public policy because it fosters government dependency on the part of the recipients. So the other alternatives that you mentioned are well worth examining instead of just handing out paychecks. Thank you.
Any further public comment on this item? Okay, nobody in the room, no virtual hands raised, staff is telling me, so I'll go ahead and bring this back for any further discussion and a motion from commissioners.
I read that law maybe a little bit differently than John. I took it as actually applying to a program that was going to be minimum income and not a study to determine if it was okay or not.
Thank you for that point, Commissioner Dorsey. I'll just share that I'm really excited about this opportunity. I'm hopeful for what we'll learn, and based on some of my experience and over the years in participating in some peer learning cohorts of a different sort, I found it really valuable to have the opportunity to talk to officials from communities of different sizes, facing different and similar challenges, and what the sort of approaches and opportunities are with that. So I'm hoping it's really fruitful opportunity for staff and then, the larger community group to really determine what a good recommendation or goal to work towards in the future might be once we understand on a more full level what this opportunity provides us. So thanks for pursuing that and for all the information. Any further comments or motion?
I'm always game to learn more and know more and understand more, and this is not an area of strength of mine for sure. So I'm very interested in that and in getting to ask the questions of the people that are the target population for the CHIP, for the economic mobility, and I'm in support of the grant as it is.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. This is Commissioner Reid. I move to authorize the Deputy County Administrator to sign a sub-grant agreement with the International City County Management Association for the Economic Mobility Community of Practice.
Commissioner Kelly, I'll second.
All right, we got a double second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you, Jill. And with that, we'll move on to appointments. I don't remember any being noted as ready, but I might have forgotten that part of the
Greg
memo.
Gardner with the is up for reappointment with the local, it's the LEPC, so it stands for Local Emergency Planning
Planning
Committee for Emergency Management. That's what LEPC stands for.
I did have a conversation with General Gardner, and I think he brings a wealth of information and background to this role and is still eager and interested in serving us. And I would be glad to continue to have him. So I would make that recommendation or that motion if anybody wants it.
Yep, I think turn that into a motion, and I'm happy to support it if there are no reservations. Okay. I'm going to say that that is moved and seconded. Well, actually, will you say the name of the where we're appointing him to again?
I move to reappoint Major General Greg Gardner to the LEPC, the Local Emergency Planning Committee.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you for being on top of that. Any other appointments other commissioners wish to discuss at this time? Oh, yeah.
Ready to appoint treasurer for Palmyra Township. So we are ready to move ahead. Rick Woodhead for the position of treasurer.
Okay, I will go ahead and second that motion as well.
Thank you very much.
I know you had a pretty extensive process of looking at people. Can you tell us anything about him?
Yes, absolutely. So Rick, we had 4 candidates for the treasurer position, and Rick was a prior treasurer, and he ended up being the candidate that ended up being the best option. He was a treasurer in 2024, and he's come back and is very willing to serve again. And he's bringing with him a breadth of knowledge as well.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I don't know all the names that were in that pool, but I had heard good things about him from staff there. So
yes, agreed. Yeah.
Thank you for your diligent work on that. Do you mind renewing that motion with a full name and the position?
So, yes, would like to bring forward Rick Woodhead for the Palmyra treasurer position.
I'll second that appointment. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, passes 5-0. Any other appointments? Okay, thank you, commissioners, keeping me on my toes. I missed that note earlier in the memo, so we'll move on to the weekly manager memo first, and then miscellaneous from other commissioners.
Commissioners, my memo's attached. It's pretty brief. Just a reminder that we are not meeting next week on June 4th. So, and then after that, we will be meeting again on June 11th. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any miscellaneous items or announcements from commissioners?
So I know this was announced ahead of time, but we did have 3 commissioners at the Cardinal Housing Network ribbon cutting, and it was really fun and inspiring. And I'm really pleased to have that new partner up and running and ready to serve women in recovery in our community. So I was really glad to be there.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see a project that we helped support come to fruition. So I'm excited to see how that program goes. Any other announcements or issues for the good of the order this evening? Seeing none in the house, seeing a no head nod from Commissioner Kelly, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.